I'd learned early in life that my brother Marcus could sell anything. Ice to Eskimos, sand to Saudis, it was his gift. What I never imagined was that he'd try to sell something that wasn't his to begin with. But that's exactly what happened on a cold Saturday in November, 3 months after Grandpa's funeral. The family meeting was Marcus's idea. He'd sent a group text to everyone. Mom, Dad, our sister Rachel, Aunt Linda, Uncle Tom, even our cousins. Everyone except me got the details about important family business regarding Grandpa's estate. I only found out about it when Rachel accidentally mentioned it during a phone call. Wait, you're coming to the meeting tomorrow, right? She'd asked. What meeting? There was a pause. Oh. I thought, never mind. Rachel. Marcus said he'd tell you. It's at Mom and Dad's. 10. I showed up at 9:55 watching through my car window as family members arrived. Marcus pulled up in his new BMW, the one he'd been bragging about on social media, the one that seemed oddly expensive for someone whose real estate business had been going through a rough patch for the past 2 years. Inside, the living room was arranged like a corporate presentation. Marcus had set up a projector, printed handouts, even brought coffee from that expensive place downtown. He was wearing his best suit, the one he saved for closing million-dollar deals. Emily, Mom said when I walked in, her smile tight. We weren't sure you'd make it. Rachel mentioned it. Marcus's jaw clenched slightly, but he recovered quickly. Great. Now that everyone's here, let's get started. I took a seat in the back next to Cousin David, who barely acknowledged me. That was normal. In this family, I'd always been the odd one out. The one who chose social work over business, the one who lived in a modest apartment instead of chasing the suburban dream, the one who wore thrift store clothes to family dinners while everyone else competed over designer labels. Marcus clicked to his first slide, a photo of Grandpa's house. The beautiful Victorian in the historic district, with its wraparound porch and original stained glass windows. The house where Grandpa had lived for 53 years, where he'd raised Dad and Uncle Tom, where every family holiday had taken place for as long as I could remember. As you all know, Marcus began, his voice taking on that smooth, practiced tone, Grandpa's estate is substantial. The house alone is worth approximately $2.3 million, given the location and recent market comparisons. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. Dad nodded solemnly. Now, maintaining a property like this is expensive. Property taxes alone are $43,000 annually. Then there's insurance, utilities, maintenance, landscaping. We're looking at roughly $78,000 per year just to keep the lights on. Aunt Linda frowned. That does seem like a lot. Exactly, Marcus continued. Which is why I've been working diligently over the past few months to find a solution that benefits everyone. He clicked to the next slide. A professional photo of a couple in their 50s, smiling in front of a sold sign. Meet the Hendersons. Tech executives relocating from California. They've been looking for a historic property in our city for months. My stomach tightened. They've made an offer. $2.4 million cash, 30-day close. Marcus paused for effect. That's $100,000 over asking price. Uncle Tom whistled. That's incredible, Marcus. It gets better. I've structured the deal to minimize taxes and maximize distribution. After closing costs and my commission, which I've generously reduced to just 3% given the family circumstances, we're looking at approximately $2.26 million to split among the beneficiaries. Rachel leaned forward. How much would each of us get? Marcus smiled. Based on the estate documents I've reviewed, the house would be divided among Dad and Uncle Tom as primary beneficiaries, with smaller distributions to grandchildren. Dad and Uncle Tom would each receive approximately $900,000. The grandchildren would split the remainder, about $90,000 each for you, Rachel, and our cousins. The room erupted in excited chatter. I watched Rachel's face light up, saw Cousin Jennifer already calculating what she could buy, heard Uncle Tom talking about finally paying off his mortgage. When do we close? Dad asked. That's the beauty of it. The Hendersons are motivated. They need to relocate by January 1st for their jobs. If we move quickly, we can close before Christmas. Everyone would have their money by New Year's. Mom was crying now, happy tears. Oh, Marcus. You've handled this so well. Your grandfather would be so proud. Something cold settled in my chest. I raised my hand slightly like a student in class. Marcus saw me but continued talking. I've already had the preliminary paperwork drawn up. Marcus, I said quietly. He stopped, irritation flashing across his face. Yes, Emily? When did you start this process? Finding buyers. About 6 weeks ago. Why? Did you consult with the executor? The room went silent. Marcus's smile froze. The executor? Of Grandpa's estate. The person legally authorized to make decisions about his assets. Marcus laughed, but it sounded forced. Emily, I am handling the estate. Dad and Uncle Tom asked me to take the lead on the house since I'm in real estate. That's not the same as being the executor. Dad shifted in his seat. Emily, honey, this isn't the time. Actually, it's exactly the time, I said calmly. Because if Marcus has been negotiating a sale without executor approval, that's a legal problem. Marcus's face reddened. I have approval. Dad and Uncle Tom both agreed. But they're not the executors either. Aunt Linda looked confused. Then who is? Before anyone could answer, the doorbell rang. Mom stood. That must be the Johnsons from next door. I invited them too. That's not the Johnsons, I said softly. Marcus stared at me. How would you know? I didn't answer. Mom opened the door and there stood Richard Pemberton, looking exactly as he had 3 months ago at Grandpa's funeral. Tall, silver-haired, carrying a leather briefcase that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He was wearing a charcoal suit and his Harvard law tie. Good morning, Richard said pleasantly. I apologize for the intrusion. I'm Richard Pemberton, senior partner at Pemberton & Associates. I'm the attorney for the Wellington estate. Mom's face paled. Oh my. Please come in. Richard stepped inside, his eyes sweeping the room and landing on me with a brief, knowing nod. Then he turned to Marcus. You must be Marcus Wellington. We've spoken on the phone. Marcus straightened, regaining his composure. Yes, of course. Mr. Pemberton. I'm glad you could make it. As I mentioned in my messages, we have an excellent offer on the property. Yes, about that, Richard interrupted smoothly. I'm afraid there's been a significant misunderstanding. He set his briefcase on the coffee table and clicked it open. You see, Mr. Wellington, Marcus, you've been conducting negotiations and accepting offers on a property you have no authority to sell. The color drained from Marcus's face. I what? That's not. Dad and Uncle Tom are the primary beneficiaries. They gave me permission. Permission from beneficiaries is not the same as executor authorization, Richard said, pulling out a thick document. According to Mr. Joseph Wellington's last will and testament, executed on March 15, 2023, and properly filed with the probate court, all estate assets are under the control of a single executor until such time as the estate is properly settled and distributed according to the terms specified therein. Dad leaned forward. But surely as his sons Tom and I have the right. You have the rights of beneficiaries, Mr. Wellington. Which means you will receive what the will stipulates, when the executor determines the time is appropriate, following proper legal procedures. You do not have the right to make unilateral decisions about estate assets. Marcus was sweating now. Fine. Then we need to speak with the executor immediately. Who is it? Richard looked at him steadily. You're speaking to their attorney. Yes, but who is the executor? Richard turned to me. Miss Wellington, would you like to explain or shall I? Every eye in the room swiveled to me. I stood up slowly, smoothing down my thrift store cardigan. I'm the executor, Marcus. Grandpa appointed me 7 months before he died. The silence was deafening. Rachel's mouth fell open. You. That's impossible, Marcus sputtered. You're the youngest grandchild? I offered. The one who chose social work over finance. The family disappointment. Mom's hand went to her throat. Joseph wouldn't, he would have told us. He did tell someone, I said quietly. He told me. In March when he asked me to take on this responsibility. He said he'd been watching all of us for years, seeing how we handled money, how we treated others, how we made decisions. He said he needed someone who wouldn't be swayed by pressure, someone who would honor his wishes exactly as he'd written them. Richard cleared his throat. If I may. He held up the document. I have here the executed will, properly witnessed and notarized. Page 7, Section 12 clearly states, I hereby appoint my granddaughter, Emily Catherine Wellington, as sole executor of my estate, granting her full authority over all assets, distributions, and decisions until such time as the estate is properly settled according to the terms herein. Uncle Tom's face was red. This is ridiculous. Emily barely visited him. Actually, Richard interrupted, according to Grandpa's calendar, which I also have, Emily visited him every single Sunday for the last 5 years of his life. She helped him with his medications, drove him to doctor's appointments, organized his bills, and spent hours just talking with him. Can any of you say the same? The room fell silent again. Marcus was gripping the edge of the table. Fine. You're the executor. So approve the sale. The Hendersons are offering $2.4 million. Yes, I heard, I said. And your 3% commission would be $72,000. Convenient. I reduced it from the standard 6% out of respect for. Respect? Marcus, you didn't even tell me about this meeting. You've been negotiating the sale of a major estate asset without consulting the executor. Do you know what that's called? Richard answered for me. Fraud. Attempted conversion of estate assets. Breach of fiduciary duty. Take your pick. Marcus's BMW, I suddenly realized. The expensive coffee. The designer suit. He'd already been counting on this commission, probably already spent it. Dad stood up. Now wait just a minute. This is family. We're not talking about fraud or legal action. Emily, sweetheart, I know you're upset you weren't included in the planning, but Marcus was just trying to help. Help himself to a $72,000 commission and make himself look like the family hero, I said. The words came out harder than I intended, but I was tired. Tired of being dismissed, tired of being excluded, tired of watching Marcus manipulate everyone. That's not fair, Rachel protested. Marcus found an incredible deal. Did he? I turned to Richard. What's the actual fair market value of the property? Richard didn't hesitate. We had 3 independent appraisals done as part of estate processing. The average valuation is $3.2 million. In the current market, with the right marketing to historic property enthusiasts and proper staging, we could reasonably expect offers in the $3.40 to $3.60 million range. Marcus's face went white. So the Hendersons' over-asking offer is actually $800,000 to $1.2 million under market value, I said. Who set the asking price, Marcus? He didn't answer. You did, didn't you? You listed it low to guarantee a quick sale and your commission. Never mind that you'd be costing the estate, costing all of us, over $1 million. I was trying to avoid a lengthy sale process. No, you were trying to avoid me finding out what you were doing, I said. How long did you think you could keep this secret? Mom's voice was small. But the money, we were going to get the money by New Year's. I looked at her, this woman who'd always favored Marcus and Rachel, who'd never quite forgiven me for choosing a lesser career path, who'd nodded along when Marcus suggested I didn't need to be included in family business discussions. Mom, did you ever wonder why Grandpa chose me? She didn't answer. I turned to Richard. Can you explain the actual terms of the will? Richard nodded and pulled out another document. Certainly. Mr. Joseph Wellington's estate is valued at approximately $8.7 million. This includes the house, his investment portfolio, savings accounts, and a life insurance policy. The will specifies that the estate is to be distributed as follows. He paused and I could see everyone leaning forward. Primary residence. To be held in trust for a period of 2 years following Mr. Wellington's death, with the executor given full discretion to maintain, rent, or sell the property as she sees fit. Any proceeds from sale are to be distributed according to a specific formula outlined in Section 18. Marcus interrupted. 2 years. We have to wait 2 years. No, Richard said calmly. The executor can sell at any time within those 2 years. But only at a price and under terms she approves. The 2-year window simply provides flexibility. What about the investment portfolio? Dad asked. The investment accounts, totaling approximately $4.3 million, are also under executor control. Mr. Wellington specified that distributions should be made based on demonstrated financial need and responsibility, as determined by the executor. Demonstrated need? Uncle Tom sounded outraged. What does that mean? I spoke up. It means Grandpa knew that some family members are better with money than others. He wanted to make sure the inheritance actually helped people, not enabled poor financial decisions. Rachel's face flushed. Are you saying we're irresponsible? I'm saying Grandpa watched Marcus buy 3 new cars in 2 years while claiming his business was struggling. He watched you and your husband take 4 international vacations last year while complaining you couldn't afford to help with Grandma's nursing home costs. He watched Dad co-sign loans for Uncle Tom that never got repaid. Dad stood up. Emily, that's enough. No, it's not, I said, my voice still calm but firm. Because Grandpa also watched me work 2 jobs to pay off my student loans. He watched me drive the same 12-year-old Honda for a decade because I was saving for a house. He watched me volunteer at the community center every weekend and donate to causes I believed in even when money was tight. He told me he trusted me to make decisions that honored what he'd spent his life building. Richard continued. The will also contains some specific provisions. For instance, Marcus Wellington is explicitly prohibited from receiving any executor fees or commissions related to estate assets. Any attempt to profit from estate transactions beyond his designated inheritance share will result in forfeiture of that share. Marcus sat down heavily. Additionally, Richard went on, the will states that any beneficiary who attempts to contest executor decisions, who attempts to conduct unauthorized transactions with estate assets, or who takes legal action against the executor will forfeit their entire inheritance share, which will instead be distributed to charity. The room was completely silent now. Aunt Linda's voice was barely a whisper. How much do we actually get? I'd memorized these numbers months ago. Dad and Uncle Tom. $500,000 each, distributed over 5 years in annual payments of $100,000. This is contingent on demonstrating financial responsibility. No new major debts, no bankruptcy, no gambling problems. Uncle Tom started to protest, but I continued. Grandchildren. $150,000 each with the same 5-year distribution schedule. The annual payments can be increased if the executor determines there's legitimate need, medical emergency, education expenses, home purchase down payment. They can be decreased or stopped if there's evidence of financial irresponsibility. Rachel was crying now. That's not fair. Grandpa loved us. He did love you, I said softly. That's exactly why he structured it this way. He didn't want you to blow through a massive inheritance in 2 years and end up right back where you started. He wanted to give you time to learn, to grow, to prove you could handle wealth responsibly. Marcus finally found his voice. And you? What do you get? The remainder, after all distributions are made and the estate is settled. Probably about $1.2 million. But I also get the responsibility of managing everything until then. Making sure the house is maintained, the investments are properly handled, the distributions are made fairly. It's not a prize, Marcus. It's work. Sounds like a pretty good prize to me, he muttered. Richard's voice cut through the room like ice. Mr. Wellington, I should inform you that the estate is prepared to take legal action regarding your unauthorized negotiations with the Hendersons. You represented yourself as having authority you did not possess. You solicited offers and began sale proceedings for a property you had no right to sell. We have documentation of all your communications. Marcus's face went from white to gray. I thought. You thought you could make a quick commission before anyone noticed, I said. How much debt are you in, Marcus? Is the BMW leased or financed? What about that new house in the suburbs Rachel mentioned you were closing on next month? He didn't answer, but his hands were shaking. The Hendersons, I continued, called Mr. Pemberton's office 2 days ago, concerned because they'd wired a $50,000 earnest money deposit to Marcus's business account and hadn't received proper documentation. They were calling to verify the sale with the estate attorney. Mom gasped. Marcus, you took their money? It's standard procedure. For authorized sales, Richard interjected. This was not authorized. The $50,000 will need to be returned immediately, along with an explanation and apology. The estate will not be pursuing charges if this is handled properly. I watched my brother's face crumble. The golden child, the successful one, the family hero, exposed as desperate and deceptive. Dad's voice was hollow. So there's no sale. No money by New Year's. Actually, I said, pulling out my own folder, there will be some money. I've been reviewing Grandpa's wishes carefully. He wanted the house to stay in the family if possible, to remain a gathering place for holidays and celebrations. But he also knew it needed proper care. I distributed papers to everyone. I'm proposing we convert the house into a family trust property. Limited liability company with the estate as majority owner. We'll rent it out for events. Weddings, corporate retreats, historic tours. The income will cover maintenance and provide modest distributions to family members who actually help with upkeep and management. Rachel looked up from the paper. You want us to run it as a business? I want us to honor Grandpa's vision of family coming together, I said. Anyone who wants to be involved can be. There will be work. Booking clients, managing renovations, coordinating events. But it keeps the house in the family and creates sustainable income instead of a one-time payout that'll be gone in 5 years. Uncle Tom was studying the numbers. This could actually work. It will work, I said. If everyone follows the rules, respects boundaries, and puts in actual effort instead of expecting money to magically appear. Marcus stood up abruptly. I'm leaving. Sit down, Richard said, his voice sharp. We're not finished. Marcus sat. Richard pulled out another document. The estate is also prepared to offer Mr. Marcus Wellington a choice. Option 1. Return the $50,000 to the Hendersons, sign an agreement to cease all unauthorized estate transactions, and accept the terms of your inheritance as specified in the will. Option 2. Marcus asked bitterly. The estate files a formal complaint with the Real Estate Licensing Board regarding your unauthorized sale attempts, fraudulent representation of authority, and misappropriation of client funds. We also refer the matter to the District Attorney's Office for possible criminal charges. The room was so quiet I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. Fine, Marcus whispered. Option 1. Richard slid papers across the table. Sign here. And here. Initial here. I watched my brother sign away his schemes, his shortcuts, his attempt to profit from the family one more time. When he finished, Richard collected the documents without a word. Mom was crying again, but this time they weren't happy tears. How did it come to this? We're family. Yes, I said quietly. We are. Which is why Grandpa gave me this job, because he knew I'd treat everyone fairly even when it was hard. Even when I'd spent my whole life being treated as less than. Dad's eyes met mine, and for the first time I could remember I saw something like respect there. Your grandfather was a wise man. He was, I agreed. And he loved all of us enough to try to protect us from our own worst impulses. Rachel wiped her eyes. The family business plan. Could I really be involved? If you want to be. There's a lot of work ahead. The house needs updates. We need to establish the LLC, create marketing materials, build a client base. But yes, anyone who wants to contribute can share in the benefits. I want to help, she said softly. Over the next hour, Richard walked everyone through the exact terms of their inheritances, the timeline for distributions, the requirements for maintaining their shares. It was painful watching my family confront reality. The reality that their patriarch had seen through all the pretenses and designed a will that would either teach them or exclude them. When the meeting finally ended, people left in small groups, quiet and subdued. Marcus slipped out without saying goodbye to anyone. Uncle Tom and Aunt Linda left together, whispering intensely. Rachel hung back. Emily, she said hesitantly, I'm sorry. For a lot of things. For going along with Marcus. For not inviting you properly. For treating you like you didn't matter. I looked at my sister, really looked at her. She was 32, 2 years older than me, and for the first time I could see past the designer clothes and perfect makeup to the insecurity underneath. Grandpa's plan includes accountability, I said. But it also includes forgiveness and second chances. If you want to be part of making the house into something special, I'd like that. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'd like that too. After everyone left, I stood in my parents' living room with Richard, packing up documents. That went better than expected, he said dryly. I laughed despite myself. Marcus didn't throw any punches. I call that a win. Your grandfather would be proud. You handled that with remarkable grace. I've had 3 months to prepare, I admitted. 3 months of knowing this moment was coming, knowing I'd have to face all of them and tell them the truth. Why didn't you tell them sooner? Because Grandpa asked me to wait. He said timing mattered, that people needed to show their true colors first. He was right. If I'd announced I was executor at the funeral, Marcus never would have revealed his plans. The family never would have shown how they really saw me. Richard snapped his briefcase closed. And now? How we rebuild, I said. We turn that beautiful house into something that serves the community and honors Grandpa's memory. We help the family members who want to learn and grow. And we enforce consequences for those who don't. You sound like him, you know. He had that same quiet strength. I felt tears prick my eyes. That's the best compliment anyone could give me. Richard left and I was alone in the house where so many family dinners had happened, where I'd always felt like an outsider. My phone buzzed, a text from Rachel. Thank you for giving me another chance. I won't waste it. Then one from cousin David. I didn't realize how hard you worked to help Grandpa. I'm sorry I never noticed. And finally, surprisingly, one from Dad. Your mother and I would like to take you to dinner next week. No agenda. Just us. We have a lot to learn about our daughter. I sat down on the couch, letting the emotions wash over me. Grandpa had known this would be hard. He'd known his family would resist, would question, would resent me initially. But he'd also known that sometimes love means tough choices, structure, accountability. The house would stay in the family. The money would be distributed fairly. And maybe, just maybe, some of those relationships could be rebuilt on foundations of honesty instead of hierarchy. My phone rang. Richard. Emily, I thought you should know. Marcus just called. He's returning the Henderson deposit, and he asked if there's still a place for him in the family business plan. He said he wants to prove he can do better. I smiled. Tell him the door's open. But he starts at the bottom, doing actual work, no shortcuts. Will do. Also, I'm emailing you information about 3 potential event clients who've expressed serious interest in the property. One is a wedding planner looking for historic venues. Another is a corporate retreat coordinator. And the third is a local nonprofit that holds an annual gala. That's fantastic. Can you forward their contact information? Already done. Welcome to the family business, Ms. Wellington. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house thinking about Grandpa. About Sunday afternoons spent listening to his stories, helping him organize his pills, driving him to doctor's appointments while the rest of the family was too busy. About the day he'd asked me to be executor and I'd tried to refuse, saying I wasn't qualified, wasn't respected enough, wasn't strong enough. You're exactly strong enough, he'd said, holding my hand with his weathered fingers. Because you understand that real strength isn't about domination or control. It's about service. About doing what's right even when it's hard. Even when people don't understand. He'd been right. I gathered my things and headed for the door, pausing to look at the family photos on the wall. Generations of Wellingtons, all gathered around Grandpa at various holidays and celebrations. In every photo he was smiling, but his eyes were always watching, always assessing, always understanding far more than anyone gave him credit for. I won't let you down, Grandpa, I whispered to his photo. I promise. As I drove away, my phone buzzed with a message from the estate management company Richard had recommended. They'd completed their initial assessment of the house and confirmed it was perfect for event rental. With some updates, they estimated annual income of $280,000 to $340,000. The family would be fine. The house would thrive. And I would continue doing what Grandpa had trained me for, making quiet, careful decisions that honored his values and protected his legacy. Sometimes the person who seems weakest is actually the strongest. Sometimes the one who's dismissed and overlooked is the one who sees everything clearly. And sometimes, justice comes not through dramatic confrontation, but through patient, persistent integrity. Grandpa had known all of that. And now finally the rest of the family would learn it too.